Welcome to this emergency podcast of Breezy Takes Manhattan. This is the obituary of the 2024-2025 New York Knicks. And unfortunately, this is a sad and somber occasion tonight as the Knicks season comes to an end with a 125-108 loss in Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals to the evil Indiana Pacers. And I want to start off just by thanking the New York Knicks for a great season, a 51-win regular season, and going further in the playoffs than any other Knicks team since 2000. 25 years. They made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. They got within 2 games of the NBA Finals, so it was a good season. It was further than they went last year when they lost in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Semifinals. And again, further than they've gone in 25 years. So it's definitely a season to be proud of. But, of course, it's always sad when a season ends. And that's the emotions that all Knicks fans and most New Yorkers are feeling tonight. But, we need to talk about what happened and what the future looks like for this team. So let's get into it. First, I think it's important to congratulate the Indiana Pacers on becoming Eastern Conference champions. I really hate them, but they really earned it. They are an incredibly offensively talented team. They do not stop scoring when they are in a rhythm. You cannot stop them. They are so quick up and down the court. One turnover, they're going to score every turnover you make. So you need to be mistake-free if you're going to beat them. And the Knicks just weren't. They made too many mistakes. They missed too many open shots. And you can't do that with a team like Indiana. They're going to make you pay, and that's exactly what happened. But, we're going to talk about how the Knicks blew certain games in this series and how they didn't play well enough, but the Pacers won this series, and they deserved it. They are an incredible team. They have a gritty, incredible group of players led by Tyrese Halliburton, and they earned this Eastern Conference title. So congratulations to them, but now let's start dissecting exactly how we got here. This series started with a Game 1 heartbreaker for the Knicks, where I believe they had a 14-point lead with 2.5 minutes left and somehow lost this game. And I told anybody who would listen that was the series when they lost that game, because not only are you losing home court advantage, but to lose in the fashion they did, with Tyrese Halliburton hitting a shot that hit the rim, bounced 10 feet in the air, it seemed like, and went in to tie the game. After everything that went wrong in that last 2 minutes, where the Knicks missed free throws, where the refs blew calls, where the Knicks didn't play any defense, and the Pacers were making every single three, the Knicks still would have won Game 1 if not for that devil magic shot by Tyrese Halliburton. And yes, I say devil magic because that's exactly what it was. Shots like that have gone against the Knicks time and time again over the years. And that's exactly what happened in Game 1. The devil creeped back in, and they end up losing that game in horrible, awful fashion. And I knew that the series was over at that point. Especially then when they didn't win Game 2, which is really inexplicable. To lose 2 in a row at home, it's just unacceptable, and it can't happen. And that's why we're sitting here tonight with the obituary of the Knicks instead of talking about them playing in the NBA Finals to take on the Thunder. You cannot lose 2 games at home in any playoff series and expect to win. It just cannot happen. And, Game 1 they had and blew. Game 2 they just got beat. And usually with Knicks teams of the past, they lose one of the first 2 home games in the series that they end up getting eliminated in because they just get beat. And that was Game 2. So the other game you need to win. And that should have been Game 1, and it wasn't. And that set the course for this entire series to go south. They did what no other Knicks team has done in recent memory. They won a game on the road after the first round. I mean, they did that in the Boston series as well. But they did win Game 3 in Indiana to get back in this series. But once they lost Game 4, it was over again. Because you're not going to come back from 3-1. You're just not. Yes, it's happened before. It's not impossible. But it's not going to happen. And they just couldn't do it tonight. And Jalen Brunson, who had an unbelievable season. He's been an unbelievable New York Knick. And I think he's got even more great things in his future. Let's be honest, he stunk tonight. He turned the ball over way too many times. He wasn't finding people. He was missing shots. He was not the superstar they needed him to be tonight. He was in Game 5 to keep the season going, but he just didn't have it tonight. And, I mean, again, they lost 125-108, so they got crushed in this game. The whole game after they had a 9-4 lead, I think it was. They missed a wide open three that would have made it 12-4, and after that, they never had the lead again once Indiana took the lead. They were playing from behind the whole game, and third and fourth quarter was really just fighting to stay in the game with leads going as high as, I believe, 18, and they kept getting it down to 12, 11. They did get under 10 a couple times. They got it to 8, they got it to 9, but they could never get any closer. And it was going to be really tough to win this game. This was a game Indiana probably felt like they needed to have. You don't want to go back to Game 7 in New York with a rowdy crowd after being ahead 3-1 and having 2 chances to close it out. So, the Pacers just played better tonight as they did in this series, and that's why we're sitting here tonight. And it's very upsetting. I will say I'm not really angry. Normally when my teams lose, I get pissed off, but I'm really not, because I think I just got all the emotions out after Game 1. Game 1 made me physically ill, which is the first time that's ever happened as a sports fan. There's been times where I've been really angry, depressed for a day or two after the game's over, but never has a game actually made me sick. But Game 1 did, because the next day I really felt like I had a cold. I think I gave myself a cold because I couldn't sleep. It was just one of those awful losses you'll never forget as a fan. And unfortunately, Knicks fans are going to be thinking about that Game 1 loss all summer. Because the Knicks win that game, it might be a completely different series. We don't know that. They lost Game 2. I assume they probably would have lost it anyway, because you'd think the Knicks would have had more urgency in Game 2, and they still lost. So I assume they would have still lost Game 2. Maybe they don't win Game 3 then. Maybe the Pacers, if it's 1-1 and not 2-0, maybe the Pacers play with more intensity in that Game 3, and they don't let the game get away. So we don't know exactly how it would have turned out if they had won that Game 1, but that really set them on a bad course, and they just couldn't dig out of the hole that they dug themselves. And it's very sad, but again, it was a good season, but now we need to talk about what we can do to try to get over the hump, because credit to the Knicks, the last 3 years they've gone further each year in the playoffs. 2 years ago they lost in Game 6 of the second round to Miami. Last year they lost in Game 7 of the second round, which is not really the progress you want to see, but it is a game further. And also last year when the Knicks lost to the Pacers, I'm pretty convinced if OG Anunoby wasn't hurt and Mitchell Robinson wasn't hurt and Josh Hart wasn't playing compromised, they probably would have won that series last year. They would not have gone any further because they didn't have any other secondary scorer besides Brunson, and they still made it that far, which was incredible. And this year they've gone further. They went to the Eastern Conference Finals. They won 2 games. It's not like they got swept. And these were all, tonight the final score doesn't really indicate it, but these were all competitive games. They could have won any of these games, really. So, they're definitely a really good team, but, they just didn't have enough in the end. And we'll have to see how they go about changing this team in the offseason. I think there's 2 approaches they can take. They can try to swap out one of their starters and maybe try to upgrade at one position, maybe for some kind of superstar, whether it be Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, some other name that pops up, because that's just how the NBA works now. Superstars become available when we're not expecting it. Or they may try another approach, which is to keep the core intact, the starting 5 of Karl Anthony Towns, OG Anunoby, Michael Bridges, Jalen Brunson, and I guess Josh Hart or Mitchell Robinson, and then try to add depth to the bench. Because the Knicks bench really was not great this year. They had Miles McBride, who didn't even have a very good season in the regular season. His shooting numbers were way down from last year. I think his defense is still good, but he definitely was not the same. And Mitchell Robinson missed more than half the season with an ankle injury. So they didn't get much from their bench this year, and I think that needs to change if they're going to go further than they went this year. So we'll see if they just run the team back and add some bench pieces, which I think is a way to go. These guys got pretty far. They were very competitive in this series too. They did lose 4 out of 6, but they could have won Game 1. They could have won Game 2. They could have won Game 4. Tonight, it was going to be tough to win tonight. But whatever approach they decide to take, I think can work. It's on the front office. It's on team president Leon Rose, who's done an incredible job since taking over a dumpster fire of organization. Let's be honest, that's what the Knicks were until 2021. I've been a Knicks fan since 2010, and there were some really awful, terrible years. I mean, there were a couple years with Carmelo Anthony where they were good. They made the playoffs in 2011. They made the playoffs in 2012 and 2013, so they had 3 straight playoff years. But in 2011, they got swept. In 2012, they lost in 5 in the first round to Miami, the Miami Heat. And then in 2013, which is still one of the best Knicks team I've ever seen, they won 54 games, and again, they lost to Indiana in the second round in 6. And that's a series that Knicks team should have won. That was really ridiculous that they didn't win that series. So that was really sad. But after that, it was all horrible until 2021. There were 60-plus lost seasons. They never got another star around Carmelo Anthony. And Carmelo Anthony was a great player, a great scorer, a very unique, talented player. But, I mean, he was not the guy to carry a team to a championship. He didn't pass the ball. He scored, but he missed a lot of clutch shots. And he never even got past round 2 with the Knicks. So, I mean, Jalen Brunson, say what you want about how he wasn't good tonight. He's already done more than Melo ever has as a Knick. He's gotten them in round 3. He's gotten them in round 2 multiple times. So I think Jalen Brunson will go down as an all-time Knick, and he deserves it. But hopefully he can get a championship, because then he's the unquestioned greatest Knick of all time. So we'll see what they decide to do. I know that the Knicks community is strong and will stay together through this tough time. But, I'm not really surprised. I think I would have been more upset if they had lost in Game 7, because at that point it's right there and you can taste it. I did not expect them to win this game. I would have been shocked. Pleasantly shocked. So, I've expected this. It's still sad. It's not what you want. It's you work your hopes up that your team can go to the championship and win it. I have not seen that much in my life as a New York sports fan. I saw the Giants win in the 2007 season, 2008 Super Bowl, and the 2012 Super Bowl, where they had incredible comfort behind victories against the New England Patriots. But no other team of mine has won. The Mets went to the World Series in 2015 and lost in just awful fashion in 5. They blew 3 of the games. They should have won. Mets should have won that series in 5. Instead, they lost in 5. Only the Mets could do that, right? And then the Rangers made it to the Stanley Cup Final in 2014, but they also lost in 5. And again, they should have won 3 of those games. Also, it's crazy. Just what happens to New York sports teams when they get so close to a title, how they just collapse. But as someone who's been a fan for a long time, since 2009, 2010, I mean, there were so many years where both the Mets and the Knicks were terrible teams, horribly managed, bringing in all the wrong players, doing all the wrong moves. And now, I mean, the Knicks have back-to-back 50-win seasons. They've been to playoffs for the last 5 years, 3 years in a row. They've gotten past round 1 3 years in a row. They got to the Eastern Conference Finals. The Knicks are a stable franchise now that's now winning and competing every year, and I never would have believed that in 2015, 16, 17, even 2010, before they got Melo. So it's been a nice turnaround. The New York Mets, the same thing. We got a long way to go this year. I should knock on wood, and I will. But they made the NLCS last year. They made the playoffs in 2022. They're off to a good start this year. They're finally signing superstars in their prime. Now, Juan Soto has not gotten off to the best start yet, but I believe he will come around. So just to have the Mets and Knicks be good, stable organizations now is wonderful. The Knicks have a really good executive. The Mets have a really good executive. Knicks have a good coach. Tom Thibodeau's a very good basketball coach. It's impossible to say that he's not. Do I think he's the coach to guide the Knicks to a championship? I don't know. I think that there might be a better option available. Tibbs is a very good defensive coach. I don't love how he's managed offenses in these playoffs, not only this year but in years previous. And it's very possible they might need someone else to get them over the hump. But I'm sure Tibbs will get another year, which he deserves because they got further than they did last year. They won an extra 3 games. So he's earned another year. You could argue that given the moves the Knicks made in the offseason, trading 5 first-round picks for Michael Bridges, who's never been an all-star. I mean, looking back on it, it's really crazy that they decided to do that. I was in favor of it at the time. Although I thought 5 was a little much, I would have preferred 3 or 4. But the main part of the deal I liked was that they weren't giving up anybody who's core of the team. They weren't giving up any important starters or role players. They were just giving up picks. And picks in the NBA can be pretty worthless if you're routinely good. If they're in the high 20s, it's hard to really get an impact guy. So I understand why the deal was made. It was a tad too much. But, look, they don't win the Celtics series this year in the second round without Bridges. I mean, he single-handedly won 2 of those games for them by stopping Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. So it's hard to argue that that was a bad trade. And then they traded Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, and a protected first-round pick for Karl-Anthony Towns. Towns is a great offensive player. He's a lead at times. He can take over a game by himself, as we saw in Game 3 of this series, in the Detroit series, parts of the Boston series, in Game 1 of this series. He cannot play defense, and that is a problem because Jalen Brunson is also a terrific offensive player, but he cannot defend either. In Brunson's case, he's short for an NBA player. Towns is 7 feet tall. He's just not a good defender. He tries. He certainly tried in this playoffs. It was not because of a lack of effort, but he had a tough time out there. So it's tough when your 2 superstars. Brunson's a definite superstar. Towns is borderline. I'd say he's more of a star than a superstar, but he's borderline superstar. It's tough when your 2 stars cannot really defend, especially together. There's been some pretty ugly plus-minus numbers from this playoffs when Towns and Brunson are on the court together, and you just can't have that with their 2 stars. So they got to figure something out. It's above my capabilities. I am not in charge of the Knicks. It'd be cool if I was, but I'm not. So I'm not the one who has to figure it out. But it'll be interesting to see what they do, for sure. It's just a shame that they couldn't find a way in this series. I mean, part of the reason is in Game 4 and Game 6, they came out of the third quarter horrible. Like 8-0 runs coming out of halftime. How does that happen twice in one series? Why is there not being something discussed at halftime? Like, we need to come out strong. We need to come out ready. We need to come out ready to play. They're not. They didn't tonight. They didn't in Game 4. That's why they lost. Sucks. It didn't need to be that way, but it was. And we need to live in reality. We can't live in hypotheticals. What if this happened? What if that happened? What if this happened? What if that happened? They lost, and they got beat pretty bad tonight. I mean, 125 to 108 is no joke. That is a pretty big beating. So they just didn't have it. They didn't have enough, and it sucks. And we all wish it wasn't the case, but here we are. And hopefully next year there'll be a better, more happier video I can make around this time. But also, it is now June 1st. It is now 1 a.m., Sunday, June 1st. The New York Knicks just took a season to June. That's pretty cool. That's not happened in my lifetime as a fan. They've gotten me over a third of the way through the baseball season now. And now, again, it's up to the New York Mets. That's the only team that's left now until next season. Rangers were pitifully bad this year. The Giants have been bad for years. And the Jets are not really my team. I root for the Giants, but I root for the Jets as my second team. They're terrible as well. So it's down to the Mets. Oh, God. That's not usually a good proposition. But, Mets are playing well. Hopefully they can find a way to win the World Series this year. I just want to see one of these teams win. It doesn't matter if it's the Rangers, if it's the Knicks, if it's the Mets, if it's the Giants again. I just want to see another team win. It's been a long time, and it feels so good. That's why you're a sports fan. You hope that you can have very happy moments to make these sad moments hurt less. But yeah, we're hurting tonight. This was a winnable series. A series where you could argue the Knicks were the more talented team, and they let that game 1 get away, and they just didn't have enough in 4 or 6 to get the win they needed because they lost 1-2 at home, which just cannot happen again. So, we might very well look at this as a horrible missed opportunity because there's no guarantee that the Knicks ever get back to this position. They got fortunate this year with, I think they probably would have won the Celtics series anyway, but Tatum rupturing his Achilles in the closing moments of Game 4 definitely helped the Knicks close that series out. They got lucky that the number 1 seed Cleveland kind of imploded in round 2 and got hurt, and Indiana shocked them. The Detroit Pistons, who the Knicks really, they played them so tough. They could have easily lost that Pistons series in Game 1, if not for Karl Anthony Towns' heroics in Game 4, in Game 3. I think it was Game 3 of that series. They could have easily lost that Pistons series. So Pistons are only going to get better next year. The Celtics probably won't be as good in the regular season without Tatum, but they'll be good. Cleveland will be back. They'll be good. Indiana's going to be good. The Magic are a very good team now. Orlando Magic, they're on the rise. So it's going to be challenging to get back to this point. And hopefully, if it does happen, that the Knicks can take advantage of it and move on to the finals next time. But yeah, it was a missed opportunity for sure. And, I just wish they could have found a way. We all do. But, again, it was a really fun year. And this is now a stable organization with a very good president. A head coach who is going to get you into the playoffs, who's going to be competitive. A superstar in Jalen Brunson. Another very good player in Karl Anthony Towns. A solid chemistry between the 3 Villanova guys, Josh Hart, Michael Bridges, and Jalen Brunson. Some solid bench players in McBride and Mitchell Robinson. There's pieces here. It's on the organization now to figure out the rest of the team and get to the next level, and hopefully they can do it. So, yeah, I don't want to keep this too long. I thank you all for tuning in. Let's go Knicks, and hopefully next year we're having a different conversation. Thanks for listening.